Next, I would like to introduce our next speaker. I'm sorry, I was playing with my own Zoom screen here. Katie Honecker-Stevens. She is going to talk about using technology to lead hybrid meetings and events. Katie joined the Junior League of Phoenix in 2016 to become more involved with the local community and is currently serving as the Vice President of Training. Last year, as member training committee chair, Katie and her committee had to master Zoom, not only for committee meetings, but for 16 virtual training programs. Katie also served as Zoom master, and yes, that was her real title, for several JLP members who organized virtual speech contests for Toastmasters. Katie has served as the president of the JLP Toastmasters Club and is currently serving as the vice president of public relations. Katie received the Mary Harriman Community Service Leadership Award in 2021. Welcome, Katie.
Thanks, Jill, and hi, everyone. I'm excited to be back. We're going to continue our discussion from New Leader Training 1 about how to schedule and run Zoom meetings on the Zoom account, but we're this time going to talk about how to do them as hybrid meetings, okay? And at the end of this, I will share again all of the links that we shared from the first session about how to do very intricate things in Zoom, because that takes way too much time to go over in one of these sessions. So for most people, this topic of hybrid meetings raises a lot of questions. Who, what, why, when, how, how are you going to do all this stuff? So please remember, I'm going to address all these questions, but this is in beta mode essentially for the Junior League. We're doing really well, but we need everyone's patience as we try to transition into using more hybrid modes. And the more times you do it, the easier it's going to be as well with some experience. So let's start with the simple question. Who's being asked to conduct hybrid meetings? That's easy. It's you and other JLP leaders. That's done. Next up, what? What are you being asked to do? So what exactly is a hybrid meeting is really where we should start. It's a meeting where you have people attending in person at one location and others attending that same exact meeting virtually via Zoom or some other platform. We use Zoom here. And if you have read up on the League's current COVID-19 policy and listened to Liz this morning, you know that we have to offer all events that are meetings, official JLP meetings, or committee trainings, other events like that, that are offered virtually. We also need to now offer them with a hybrid method. So while you can hold an in-person meeting, an event, you must also simultaneously offer that in a hybrid format. But this does not require you to hold hybrid meetings instead of virtual meetings. Like in other words, you don't have to do this. You can hold just a virtual meeting, and that's fine if that works for your team and your event. If you hold an in-person meeting, that's where this comes into play. If you hold a virtual meeting or an in-person meeting, you have to have a virtual component. But we also recognize that it's not going to apply to all situations. And as you can see on the slide, you plan a group hike, a social, time like a happy hour, a dinner, you have a holiday party for your committee, something like that, where it's not going to work to, have your GoPro, with you doing this recording. You don't have to do it in those situations. But what you can't do is say, we're going to have a group hike. We're all on the committee going to go on this hike. And while we're on the hike, we're going to plan out our next event. You can't do that. You can't have that in lieu of your committee monthly meeting. So you can have these as extra things as long as you're not replacing your official committee meetings. Those need to be either all virtual or virtual with an in-person component is really how I like to see it instead of the other way around. So you have the option to add real live people in one room together. So let's discuss next is where this is going to happen. So if you don't know, some of you have never been here, this is JLP headquarters, and the League has invested new technology to make doing hybrid meetings possible. So if you've never been here, this is the front of the building. Some of you may never have seen this, even if you've been in the League for years, because we don't use this front entrance, we use the back. So you'll park behind the building and go in through the back door. If you show up and knock on this door or ring the bell here, you're gonna freak people out, so don't do it. Just go to the back, but just know this is where you're gonna be able to hold your meetings, unless like your workplace or somewhere else you have access to also has the ability to do hybrid meetings. But if that's the case, obviously you're going to have to clear it with that company first. And a lot of companies aren't liking it when you bring in outside people into their spaces during COVID. Okay, so next, once you're inside the building, you have two meeting options. You've got the training room, which is the large room, where in non-pandemic times you could have up to 94 people. Obviously, the capacity now is going to be a lot less than that. We don't have a specific number set, but you're going to want that greatly reserved or reduced down to maybe 20 or so, whatever you can fit comfortably, and make sure people still have distance. And again, they're going to have their masks on, as Liz mentioned. So then if you have less than that, if you have a smaller group, go to the boardroom. That room normally holds 16 to 20 people. It's a little bit cramped, but 16 comfortably. Now you'd probably want it for maybe 10 people or so, or less, or even a couple people wanting to meet in person. So those are your two options at headquarters, and you'll specify that when you reserve the space. So now that you know where you can hold the meeting and who it applies to, now we need to know when this applies, and the answer again is easy. Now, this is a current policy. It's in effect right now. Hybrid meetings are going to allow us, we're moving on to why, to maintain diversity in our opinions. We're going to hear from Jesse Wright on that a little bit more, but we're going to get the diversity of opinions by balancing out some of our members' desire to have in-person experiences and interactions with the reality of COVID, and also the fact that we all have busy lives. And a lot of times we just can't make it to a meeting across town or at a certain time, and it's easier to do this. So even after COVID, this may stay. Finally, the most important question really in your mind is probably, how do we hold a hybrid meeting? And I say it's almost like magic, and here we go. So if anyone knows me, I'm a Harry Potter fan, and so I can find a Harry Potter connection anywhere, but this one wasn't even a stretch. This guy is called an owl, this white guy. It's a snowy owl made of plastic, and it's going to make all of your hybrid meetings possible, and it's going to be like magic for you once you figure out how to use it. So it's pretty easy. This owl is a 360-degree camera, microphone, and speaker. So it's going to replace all of the other versions of those in your in-person setting. Okay, so you will rely on this in person. Everyone at home will use their normal Zoom settings that they use. They are not affected at all, but in your room, everyone else will turn off their, well, they can have their camera on if they want, but their microphone and their speakers will be turned off, and this will do it for everyone. And it's 360 degrees, which means just like an owl, it's going to be able to spin its little head. You don't really see it, but it does it inside. It spins its little head around, and it will figure out who's talking, and it will focus on that person, and it will capture their image as a bigger image, and then it will capture their voice as well. And the microphone catches voices up to 16 feet away, so it works really well in both of our situations we have. And they're sending us constant updates as well, because sometimes there's like a little background noise or something like that it's catching, so it'll be improving as we go along. You just want to make sure that you don't have it too close to the air conditioner, because it's going to hear that, so kind of set it back a little bit away from that. And you'll know if it's doing that if it's just staring at one person the whole time and that person is sitting under the air conditioner. Just bring it back a little closer to the TV. So setting this up is really easy. It has two cords. One's a power cord, one's a USB type A, just a traditional USB cord. So the power cord should already be in the wall. If it's not, just plug it in, and the other one is going to go to your laptop. And if you don't have a laptop, headquarters has a laptop, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into reserving it. But you can ask Sue Holmes at headquarters about how to reserve the laptop if you need it, or if someone on your committee or in your event doesn't have one for you. But if you have one, just bring it in, and every laptop pretty much has at least one USB port, so you'll be set there. Next, you'll need to find this blue box. There's one in each room. In the training room, it's stored in the speaker lectern, and in the boardroom, it's on the sideboard. Inside of this, you're going to find the HD, it's a wireless HD transmitter that's going to connect your laptop to the TV. Okay, so you've already connected yourself to the speakers and the microphone and the camera. Now you need to somehow be connected to the TV in that room, and that's what this is going to do. So this device is easy. You plug both of those into your computer, and it's important that you plug them both in, because obviously if you don't have that little cord, the little wiring cord plugged in, you have no power for the transmitter. So sometimes I've seen people have that dangling and it just doesn't work, right? Because you have no power. So plug in the power cord to your computer and to the little device there, the little adapter. At the end of that thing is a little adapter. You can take that off if you don't need it for your computer. Take it off and plug it in that way. If you have a computer that has different types of outlets, like I have a very thin laptop, so I a lot of times have to have an adapter. So if you have a computer like that, you probably know it, and you know you don't have full-size HDMI ports, or maybe you only have one USB port, you might need an adapter that gives you another USB port, or that converts the little tiny micro HDMI to a larger one. So just be aware of your laptop's ability and make sure that you can work with this. But if you have a problem with that, where you only have one USB port, for example, 2 people in your committee can each bring a computer, and one can hook up to the OWL and one can hook up to the TV. So it's pretty easily solved. So then we're going to need to connect to Zoom, because otherwise your TV is going to be looking at not much. So we want to make it so that the people in the room can see what's going on in Zoom, because a lot of times the people in the room won't have their laptops, and using their laptop is going to use the Wi-Fi. So we don't want to necessarily do that. We want to have them either, if they're going to be on Zoom, we want them on their own hotspot by their phones, for example, or they can just use what's on the screen, what you're going to show them on the big monitor in the room. So that's where we need to set up all the things here. So the OWL's connection will allow you to show the room to the people at home, and the TV itself will allow you to show the people at home to the people in the room. Okay, so now you're going to go into your settings in Zoom. So you log into your Zoom meeting, and do this early. Don't show up a minute before your meeting starting. You need to do this early, because the OWL will also learn as you're in the room, and it will start picking up sounds and different things, and it'll get better. So you don't want to do that the second the meeting is starting. So you're going to go to the unmute icon in Zoom, and you need to select the OWL option. Here it says meeting OWL. So you're going to do that for both the microphone and the speaker. And if for some reason it doesn't show up, log out and do it again. That's why it's good to get there early. Then that's going to serve as everybody's microphone and speaker in the room. So if you start getting feedback, that means somebody's microphone or speaker is on, and that's causing a problem. So you just need to get them to turn that off. And they can go into the same setting and they can just turn it off. All right, so then we go to audio options under that same icon, and we're going to turn the volume up to the max for both the speaker and the microphone. That's going to just make it so this guy works his best. Or actually, I should fix that. This is Hedwig, right? We're talking about our snowy owl. She's a girl, and that's fitting for the Junior League. Next, we're going to allow the virtual participants to see everyone in the meeting room by turning on the camera to be the owl. So that's going to be the meeting owl now for the camera. So under the camera icon, you'll pick that instead of your normal, whatever your laptop's camera normally is. And then we're going to see this. So this is a kind of blown up version of one of the views that we saw at one of our trainings recently. And in this one, you'll see this would be like in our Zoom squares. When you're looking at Zoom, you see everyone's thumbnail picture. This is a thumbnail, so this would take up one of those. So if you want people to see your face large all the time, as opposed to this way, you would need another laptop to talk to, okay? Just be aware of that. But otherwise, when you talk, this little owl will come and look at you, and it will show you, but you'll just be a little bit further away. So they're going to see on the top, it's a panoramic view of the room, which is fascinating. So they can see people even who aren't talking. And then it will swing around and focus on whoever is talking. It takes a second to do that. It won't be instant, okay? Because they don't want to pick up all the people who just say, oh yeah, or cough, something like that. So it's trained to respond a little bit slower to make sure the person really is speaking, and then it will zoom over to that person and focus on them. Next thing is just something I think is helpful. If you are the person in control of this owl's camera, then change the name of that thumbnail to say JLP HQ or something like that, or in-person attendee, something, so people will see, oh yeah, that's who that is, and it's not Jane Smith, right? Because this isn't Jane Smith anymore. It's now we're talking about its headquarters. So here are just a few reminders. Bring your laptop, or have someone else bring a laptop. Turn off all other audio. And then this we talked at the last one, PowerPoint slides, if you're going to share them, you share them by sharing a screen, not the program where you're going to end up showing your presenter view. So just a few things to remember there. And then I have a few more things, just a couple more slides. You need to remember to submit 2 shift event request forms because you're going to have people attending in person and virtually. So this is for events. So if you're doing your committee meeting, you don't have to do that. You just send out the information. Okay, you're going to send out just your regular invitation, calendar invite, whatever you do, calendar request, and you'll provide the virtual option. And you have to do that even if you think everybody is coming. They've all told me they're coming to headquarters for the meeting. Something can happen at the last minute and change that. So you always have to have that virtual option if it qualifies as a hybrid meeting type. So you're going to do 2 forms. One will say we can fit 20 people in headquarters, let's say. So people can sign up for that. And then we have pretty much unlimited or up to 300 people can attend virtually. So you have 2 sign up forms. Then you'll also be able to see as well. Because if no one is coming in person to your event and it's going to be a lot of work to do it as a hybrid event, you might want to reconsider that. So just, keep that in mind, but make it easy for Sue at headquarters and submit through a digital cheetah 2 forms. And then finally, this is kind of a take on one of the last ones I did, one of the last slides from the last program, where I gave some how to up your game in a Zoom meeting. But there are some differences because now we're in a hybrid meeting, right? Can you do all of the same things? So you can't. So let's go through these really quickly, what you can and cannot do in a virtual meeting. So sorry, my screen just took over there. So we have, remember to include all of the attendees. You have attendees who are somewhere else, right? Like if you're in person, your attendees are on the screen and you might get carried away in conversations with the people in the room and forget about them. Don't let that happen. It can also work the other way. Let's say for somehow you're able to get people in person at headquarters and you're remote. Don't forget about the people in person. So you just want to remember all of those people. Next, we talked about having eye contact with everyone when you're on a Zoom meeting. So you want to make sure you know where to look in your camera. But how do you do that when you're in a hybrid meeting and you're not sitting in front of your computer? What I've seen at some of our meetings so far is sometimes people just look up at the TV and they talk to the TV, they wave at the TV. Everything is directed at the TV because that's where they're seeing the people. So remember, that's not where the camera is, right? The camera is at the owl, and the owl might be in some different direction. And depending on your seat in the room, you may have to turn that way or that way, right? If you're the chair of the committee holding a hybrid meeting, you don't want to have to do that. So you'll want to position yourself in the room so that you're in line with the TV and the owl. You want the owl in between so you can look at the TV, you can see people, and you can talk essentially to the TV, but you're being picked up by the owl and you're facing the owl. So you're making eye contact there with them. All right, and then screen share, that becomes a little bit difficult with hybrid. You can do it, you can do it. But sometimes on the other end, the people will just see the screen share and they don't know how to see the participants again. So remember, if you're sharing your screen, don't just leave it up. Switch it out, take it down when you don't need it up so that everyone can see everyone else. And then polls, like how do you do a poll with your people in person? So keep those things in mind, and you need to figure out, do you want to use it maybe maybe something you can do on your phone, or just have people raise their hands or talk or something like that, because it's not going to be equal and we want to make sure we have equity. PowerPoints, again, I mentioned before that you have to share your screen, but here's another thing you can do. In Zoom, you can make your PowerPoint a background, a virtual background. So if you have another computer or even like your phone and you sign in as a different participant, you can then set that up as a background. And if you cover up your camera with a Post-it note, it will just show the slides in a regular square, like a thumbnail, which is a nice option, or behind you. And then whiteboard, again, just remember that's kind of like polls where you won't have full participation because the people in person won't be able to do that. And then have people change their names if they're in person to their name and then put HQ after it, because this will be helpful, one, to let people know where everyone is located. This is if they're on their laptop, let's say with their sound off, if they're on their laptop. If you're going to use breakout rooms, and that's the next slide, you want to make sure that you don't send anyone who's in headquarters or at your in-person location to that breakout room with those other people, because they'll have to turn their sound back on to participate. And now we're going to have all sorts of audio issues. So you want to put everyone who's in headquarters into breakout rooms together. Everyone who's virtually, they can be in breakout rooms together, and you can have multiple breakout rooms like that. So that, I think, is the end of my slides. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, and maybe we can address them at the end of the program.
Real quick, Katie, I know that Stephanie wanted to mention something.
So Katie, after our meeting yesterday, I actually bought some, I don't know if you can see these, but I bought USB extenders for headquarters. I bought 2 of them, so those will be available as well. If you do have a computer that only has one USB port, it'll actually allow you to put 4 more devices in. So I'm going to donate those to the league, and one will be in the training room and one will be in the boardroom. So probably won't be there for another week or so. So if you're having a meeting before then, don't rely on it, but they will be available as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, because I have to always bring mine. So that's wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you, Katie. That was full of great ideas. And I want to publicly, and I don't know if she's still on, but I want to publicly thank Liz and Jenny and our entire finance team for doing, and our administrative team for getting us this equipment, because I think it's going to be very helpful for us, not only in COVID world, but someday when there is a post-COVID world as well. And then any questions that you have for Katie, please put them in the chat and we will get to them at the end of the program.